Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Let's get after it.
Something really weird is happening with Area 51. First off, some of the people who used to work at Area 51 are coming out talking about how they received no benefits after being exposed to radiation poison. Check it out real quick.
So the radiation exposure that we experienced was for 4 years we lived up there. They knew when they did the assessment that our air was contaminated, our soil was contaminated, and our drinking water was contaminated. So the water that my food was cooked in was contaminated. The water that I showered in every day was contaminated.
And while that's being talked about, coincidentally, there is also a wildfire near Area 51 that is raising some speculation and causing people to come up with theories. Some people believe that the wildfire won't just burn up area or desert land around Area 51, but will also conveniently burn up any evidence of whatever happened in the last 50 years there as well. Personally, I think it's so interesting watching a place going from being just a rumor or something people didn't even think existed to being openly talked about in the court of law.
They're clearly trying to cover something up with these fires. And how convenient that right as all of this stuff is coming out, right when information is hitting the press that's gonna all but guarantee the need for some sort of investigation, the entire place goes up in flames. Come on. How stupid do they think we are? This 100% looks like the government trying to cover their tracks and destroy all the evidence. And these hearings, they don't just happen out of nowhere. They knew this was coming and they tried to get out ahead of it before anyone could investigate these claims.
Ozzy Osbourne has just passed away at the age of 76, just days after Black Sabbath's final performance. I don't think that you could get much more poetic than this. News articles aren't giving much details of how Ozzy passed away, just that he passed early this morning peacefully with his family by his side. But you guys, I was just talking about how Black Sabbath's last performance kind of felt like a passing of the torches from Ozzy to Youngblood. Like the transfer in Youngblood's music video, The Funeral. Like the nightly dubbing feel that this interaction gave us where Ozzy told Youngblood to go conquer America. It felt more like a farewell. And in return, Youngblood hands Ozzy an upgraded cross necklace embedded with diamonds. And the whole Liquid Death thing where Ozzy Osbourne is selling cans with his DNA on it in the commercials are like...
Now, once technology and federal law permits, you can replicate Ozzy and enjoy him for hundreds of years into the future.
Was this just an insane amount of coincidences, or were they hinting to the fact that something like this was going to happen? But I kind of question that theory because Kelly Osbourne got extremely defensive when social media was saying that this was Ozzy Osbourne's funeral and that this was his final farewell. If this wasn't a passing of the torches situation, you guys, I just find everything that was set in place to be eerily timely.
I do find it very odd how Ozzy seemed to be all over the internet in the past few weeks. Just last week I was commenting to my wife that I kept seeing Ozzy Osbourne popping up everywhere. And then they had that farewell Black Sabbath tour, which I just assumed that all this media attention he was getting the 2 or 3 weeks beforehand was just all to hype up that concert and get more eyes on it. And honestly, that probably is the reason why all of a sudden, when we haven't really heard anything about Ozzy for several years now, all of a sudden he's all over the media. But man, if that isn't some odd timing. Hey, don't forget to click like and subscribe if you haven't already, and check out my merch store at berry-stepp.com.
So remember that conspiracy theory where it was saying if you have organ donor on your card and you get into an accident, hospitals will either let you die or actually actively try to kill you to get your organs? Well, it's no longer a conspiracy theory. It has just been confirmed by a new article in the New York Times, and it says a push for more organ transplants is putting donors at risk. People across the United States have endured rushed or premature attempts to remove their organs. Some were gasping, crying, or showing other signs of life. I'm a little speechless because this is real. This is a real thing that's happened. They have so many different examples of this within this article. I read it for free because somebody posted a gifted version on Twitter. So go there to find this article if you want to read the whole thing. It's really disturbing and this is insane. I'm going to share this story first. In 2022, when she was 38 and homeless, Miss Gallegos, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, was hospitalized and went into a coma. Doctors at Presbyterian Hospital in Albuquerque told her family she would never recover. Her relatives agreed to donation, but as preparations began, they saw tears in her eyes. Their concerns were dismissed according to interviews with the family and 8 hospital workers. Donation coordinators said the tears were a reflex. On the day of the planned donation, Miss Gallegos was taken to a pre-surgery room where her 2 sisters held her hands. A doctor arrived to withdraw life support. Then a sister announced she had seen her move. The doctor asked her to blink her eyes and she complied. The room erupted in gasps. Still, hospital workers said the procurement organization wanted to move forward. The coordinator said it was just reflexes and suggested morphine to reduce movements. The hospital refused. Instead, workers brought her back to her room and she made a full recovery. And she's still alive today. Thank goodness. And if that doesn't scare you, because clearly this has happened to a lot of people, and of course we're not going to know that because they're not alive anymore. This is like so sickening and so disturbing to me that we would prioritize getting somebody's organ rather than saving somebody's life. Actually, many years ago I removed organ donor from my license. If you're concerned about that, I would recommend doing the same thing. Having that organ donor label really overrides everything.
Every time you hear a conspiracy like this, you get the same response as your pushback every single time. That if it was really going on, there would just have to be too many people involved. That many people wouldn't be okay with doing something like this. But just look at that article where it says that the coordinator was lying to this girl's family and trying to push morphine to cover up her recovery because she still wanted to harvest her organs. That is a low-level employee. And that's all the evidence I need that there are people out there willing to do some very evil things for money. And that's clearly what this is about. It's not like they were all trying to harvest this girl's organs because they wanted to save a bunch of other people's lives. If they cared about life at all, they wouldn't be sitting here throwing in the towel when this girl is showing obvious signs of recovering. That's horrifying. You can't trust the medical industry at all anymore. I thought this was really interesting because we've all heard the stories from the whistleblowers talking about these massive underground tunnel systems and how they have basically cities down there that even have Starbucks and a McDonald's in them. This video just added quite a bit of validity to those stories. What in the world would they need a McDonald's in an underground bunker for? And think about how many people would have had to have been working down there in order to justify putting something like that in. This just goes to show you can clearly keep a large secret with a lot of people involved in it, especially whenever all the people involved have all signed NDAs and they're all operating under the knowledge that if they talk, they're going to get disappeared.
Remember back several years ago when this showed up on the southeastern limb of the sun? There was all kinds of wild speculation going on around the entire world. This created quite a stir. People had never seen anything like this before. And compared to the Earth over here on the right, you can see the huge sphere over here on the left that was many times larger than the Earth. And as you guys remember, some of the theories going around, people thought this was some sort of a possible large craft that was attached to the bottom of the sun, recharging. It created quite a stir. NASA even came out with a statement a couple of days after that was discovered saying that that was a mere coronal cavity. And we haven't seen anything like that since, at least something quite that big. Until, here recently, Brandy Cage has sent in this video. You're going to see a solar flare over here on the eastern limb of the sun, just above where the huge sphere was at. The sphere was down here on the southeastern limb. This object here that you're going to see is just above the equatorial regions. Here we go. Watch the energy come off the surface of the sun, and this object, whatever it is, appears to easily deflect the energy. Look at that. Looks like there's something parked there, and the energy of the sun appears to reveal whatever's parked there. Here it is in a different format. It appears to be smaller than the huge sphere. It doesn't appear to be perfectly round, but also doesn't appear to be perfectly square. But you can clearly see that there's something there easily deflecting this energy. I'm going to show you this region in different formats, and you're going to see that whatever this was appeared to be parked next to the sun, and it appeared to be easily deflecting the energy from the solar flare. Here it is again in a different format. I zoomed in closer. Look at that. Unbelievable. What's up with the eastern side of the sun? This is the second time we've seen what appears to be some sort of a large anomaly, stationary anomaly, next to the sun. Is there something going on up there that we don't know anything about? It kind of looks that way. This is the second time the SDO has found something.
I'm going to have to lean toward this being some sort of natural phenomenon, because here's what I can't wrap my head around. If anyone's thinking that this must be some alien-built device that's harvesting energy from the sun or something, where did whoever or whatever built this thing get all the material to construct it in the first place? That thing looked like it was easily several 100,000 times larger than our entire planet. That is, if they're giving us the true dimensions of our Earth. But where would you even get enough raw material to build something at that scale? It just doesn't seem possible.
If you have Neuralink in your head and it's accessing your data centers, how easy would it be to just feed both into the data center that then feeds everybody that has a Neuralink in their head? Here's an example. I'm a Christian. A lot of people think that AI is going to manipulate the Bible and change a lot of things. And how easy would it be to just feed that into the AI data center? And then that's the new, whatever you feed it, that becomes the new truth, because that's what everybody's accessing, is that specific data.
Yes, for sure. That's a huge risk. And even AI today, by the way, you can use it to propagandize to a dramatic degree. But yeah, once you get towards, you have Neuralink or other brain-computer interfaces that can directly, insert thoughts into people's brains. I mean, it's extreme power that has never existed before. And who governs that power? Who governs that technology? Who makes sure that, it's used for the right purposes? Those are like some of the most important societal questions that we'll have to deal with.
Man, I mean, where do you even start with that?
This was the question on everyone's mind, and now that we have an answer, if you get one of these things, you are literally signing your brain away. I think this is going to prove to be one of the dumbest technologies ever invented, and I think it was probably unavoidable that someone would eventually try to build out a technology like the Neuralink, but we'll never be able to trust it. And just look at the guy running it. He lies about stupid stuff, like being one of the top gamers in the world. He's not exactly a model of integrity. I know there'll still be people out there that want one, though. I think this is one of the biggest signs that we are a society in the beginning stages of collapse. People are going to line up for this thing en masse, all so they can have a device in their head that makes them happy all the time.
Okay, this is actually really big news. So there's been some recent developments in theoretical physics, and now it's actually looking like we don't live in a simulation, at least not how we thought before. But if we do, we now know a little bit more about what's simulating us. I'll get back to that in a second. First, I'm going to use a little bit of computer science and physics jargon in this video. It's really not as complicated as it sounds, and it's actually pretty cool. Let's get to it. So you may have heard people say we live in a simulation, or heard of something called the simulation hypothesis. And basically it was saying this: if we as humans are able to simulate a universe that's indistinguishable from ours, then the simulated minds in that universe will also be able to do the same thing and basically create an infinite chain of simulated universes. And if that's the case, the likelihood that we are in the base or the original reality becomes super low. So a lot of people use that as evidence to say we are living in a simulation. Now this is where it gets a little bit complicated. So in theoretical physics, the most efficient computer we could possibly create ever would be a black hole. I can make another video on that, but basically it's the upper limit of information density in our universe. We can actually determine the minimum amount of energy required to make a computation on that computer in relation to how much information it holds. And basically it's been determined that to simulate the entire universe for even the smallest unit of time would take way more energy than our universe has. Even to simulate just Earth at the lowest possible resolution, one that we couldn't detect with physics experiments, would take way more energy than we could ever get. This means that if we're being simulated, the universe simulating us is much different than ours. universe. Like it might have more dimensions or way more energy or completely different laws of physics, which does cause the whole crux of the infinite chain of simulations to break down. However, there is still something called the minimal simulation hypothesis, which is now kind of more likely, and that's that the universe isn't simulated at all. It's just our consciousness or our minds that are simulated. And either it's just you being simulated, or we're all being simulated and reality isn't real, it's just kind of what we agree upon creating. And that actually would be supported by some physics experiments that have proved that the universe is not locally real, etc. But really cool to think about.
I think it's cool that science thinks that they've proven that we aren't in a simulation, and I agree with them. I also do not think that we're living in a simulated reality. But how are they ignoring the fact that with AI and a Neuralink device installed in your head, something that's going to be capable of triggering physical sensations in the brain that correlates with visual input, and then using something as advanced as the new Unreal Engine, which I'm sure they're working on a newer, updated version of, it would be possible today to place someone in a simulated reality. And it would probably take the average person, just with the tech that we have available to us today, years to even realize that they're not in base reality anymore. I'm not saying that this is what this is, but it sounds like this is propaganda to get us to think that this is not possible. That way, we're all easier to deceive in the future whenever they want us all to get chipped.
The UK has just approved sun dimming experiments, and the government wants to block the sun, and I'm going to explain to you why this is potentially catastrophic. Right now, £50 million has just been approved for solar geoengineering experiments. A plan to spray particles into the sky reflecting sunlight and cooling the planet. Sounds smart, but it's not. And this is the risks they won't mention. It could disrupt global rainfall, causing droughts and floods where food is already scarce, potentially triggering famines. It might shred the ozone layer, letting deadly UV radiations pour down on crops, animals and us, potentially increasing cancer. It won't stop CO2 buildup, so our oceans will keep acidifying, killing marine life. So it's not going to make any difference to the marine life in our oceans, it's just going to continue as it was. If they ever stop spraying, termination shock, the earth could heat up so fast ecosystems wouldn't survive. Right? And for you farmers, crop failure from reduced photosynthesis, like you haven't had it hard enough as it is. Sun dimming lowers the amount of photosynthetically active radiation, PAR, the type of sunlight that plants need to grow. This is just 101 knowledge. Effects on agriculture: lower light, weaker plant growth, lower yields for wheat, rice, maize, soybeans and other stable crops. The regions that will be at risk if this goes global, because it always starts with one place and then it spreads. Places that will be highest at risk: India, monsoon-dependent rice production, sub-Saharan Africa, Southeastern Asia, parts of Latin America as well. Okay, all these places, well, some of them that are already struggling in areas to feed themselves and to have a good income, they're going to be at incredible detriment. Sun dimming experiments, the SRM interferes with jet streams and monsoon systems, shifting when rain falls and causing drought in some regions while flooding others. Where there's droughts, forest fires can happen, crop failures from drought, flooded fields, rotting harvests, collapse of food systems that depend on predictable rain cycles. Stratospheric aerosols geoengineering could weaken the Indian and African monsoons, impacting the food and water security of billions, okay? I know I said this is starting in the UK, but it always starts with one place and it's going to happen throughout the rest of the world, mate, okay? So you need to pay attention to this. Breakdown of ecological timelines, okay? Pollinators and crop timing. Mechanisms. Many crops rely on pollinators like bees and birds whose behaviour is triggered by sunlight patterns. Sun dimming could desynchronize pollinator life cycles from plant flowering periods. Crops flowering at the wrong time. Lack of pollination. No fruits or seed production. Massive food shortages even if the plants survive the light reduction. And anything spraying aerosols into the atmosphere is just bad for everyone and everything all around. If sulfate aerosols are used as proposed, they can form sulfuric acid in the atmosphere, leading to acid rain, soil degradation from the acid rain, again, which would make it poor for woodland soils, habitats, crops as well. The soil will just be poo-poo caca. Acidified soils, nutrient depletion, failing crops, damage to freshwater fisheries and food systems reliant on water ecosystems. And there's a thing called termination shock. If this SRM program suddenly stops after doing it for a period of time, the ecosystem and nature can't catch up with the sudden fluctuations and the temperature change, okay? So if we experience anything like war, funding failure or political collapse, the sun's full intensity returns immediately. So it won't just be like, you know, a gradual increase, it'll be bomb back to square one with temperature jump like that, bang. But the CO2 levels will still be sky high because SRM doesn't remove carbon. Rapid global heating, termination shock. Crops and ecosystems can't adapt fast enough. Global agricultural collapse. Widespread famines, once again. It's like we need that, right? And you may be wondering who's funding this, and what a shocker, Bill Gates again. Him and his pals George Soros and his son. And even Bill Gates had a secret meeting with Keir Starmer about political things and the effort for net zero and things of that nature. And who else knows what they were talking about? Because, I don't know, is he putting his money in our Keir's pocket, bruv, to kind of push this stuff forward? Probably. Sun dimming isn't just a risk to the atmosphere, it's a risk to the entire planet. And it's a direct threat to the global food supply, okay? If you want to put your conspiracy hat on for entertainment purposes only, you know, control the food, control the population, okay? These people that are making these decisions in power are absolutely disgusting, and these people need to have the finger waved at them, the book thrown at them, because people that are actively pushing this forward are psychopathic, okay? It doesn't just start here. Once you let them get their foot in the door, where does it stop, okay? And who's to say that anyone that has this sort of control on a global scale, if someone has control with the thermostat, right, and it gets into the wrong hands, they could use this for war-type efforts, controlling people and things of that nature, okay? So it's not just, it's you need to be careful. This is disgusting.
Here's the thing he isn't considering. All of this stuff sounds bad, but they're not going to be worried about food shortages if they're successful at dropping the population down below that 500,000 people mark. They'll still have plenty of resources left when there isn't anyone to share it with. And I know I'm probably just too aware of all the evils being done in this world because I sit and watch this type of content like every day, but I'm getting terrified over what kind of world my kids are about to inherit. If these people aren't stopped soon, there's not even going to be a world to inherit before long. Where are these elites planning to live? Do they not realize that this is going to completely destroy this planet that they so badly want control over? I guess those bunkers are starting to make more sense now.
He goes by a lot of different names. Remember, Yahweh's weapon at Babel, they built a great city, which was the throne of Satan, the Eye of Ra, physical city, that he would ascend into the heavens with and live as Mount Olympus, we call it in other mythology, physically live in the sky in a cloaked city. That's his city in the sky that you'll see referenced all over, like the Death Star that's going to come back when the Father casts him down to the earth. Woe to you, inhabitants of the earth, because the God of this age has come down. The dragon's come down and he has great wrath. He's only got 42 months. But his shot caller on the earth is going to be the beast who rises. That's Apollo. It's not some Nikolai Carpathia and Tim LaHaye and Jerry B. Jenkins Left Behind series brainwashed America and the world to think that it's some dude who's going to just show up one day and be real politically active. Not that guy. It's named in the Bible explicitly for a reason. It's not like a questionable thing. Death follows him. That's Anubis. That's the jackal-headed god. That's the false prophet. It's plainly said in the scriptures. They are going to come and physically inhabit actual thrones on the earth. The dragon, the devil, Azazel, is going to give his power, his reign, over to Apollo. They won't go by these names, right? They'll call him like the Traveler. They're going to call him celestial hosts. These gods, these aliens that have come. The guys who gave us life. Thank you, Prometheus. Those guys. That'll be much more the narrative that's conducive for their agenda. But these X-Men, like, they are literally children, bloodline inheritance children from Nimrod, the tower. Others come from other gods, other immortals that taught the secrets of heaven. It's not always that they had with women to inseminate their seed. Sometimes they took their blood, they feed on humans, they get blood in their bodies, and when they run out, it physically runs out of their body, they need to recharge. They can give that blood to people to make them their children in a different way that circumvents the curse. They're lawyers and they're looking for loopholes. And if they let you drink their blood and not inseminate you, they've got a way out from the judgment. And so that's one of the ways they do it. The other way is they teach mankind how to use specific plant hormones like auxins and cytokines to augment growth. This is where a lot of the giants post-flood came from, is genetic manipulation through the use of plants.
Think about this. Almost everyone has heard the stories about the Anunnaki, about how they supposedly created humans via genetic manipulation of apes or Neanderthals? What if that whole story this entire time was just a psyop? What if they just wanted us to believe that when the aliens show up, that those are our creators? Maybe that story has been pushed so hard because they want us to have some sort of appreciation when these beings show up and start trying to take over everything. Maybe they're just hoping that the majority of people will assume that these things likely created us and therefore simply must have our best intentions at heart. That makes a lot of sense to me. And just think about how much money has been put into getting this idea out there. That Ancient Aliens show has been on the air for 16 years. They've made 21 seasons of that garbage. There are over 260 episodes of Ancient Aliens, and that's not even including all the specials. And it's estimated that it costs between $100,000 to $500,000 per episode to produce that show. Someone really wants us to believe that we were created by aliens. And this is the first logical explanation for it that I think I've ever heard. But guys and gals, I'm going to go ahead and end the video right there. I hope you enjoyed these clips we watched together today. I'll be back soon with another video. I hope you come back to join me. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and check out my merch store at berry-stepp.com. And don't forget to drop a photo of your merch over in the Discord to get your photo in a video. But guys and gals, I hope everyone has a great, safe, fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you all in the next one.